everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Mike the Principal Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 10. We're going to talk about toxic positivity today. Before we jump into the episode content, just wanted to remind you to go ahead and click the subscribe button. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you can get this new content delivered to your inbox each and every time that we produce new episodes, which is weekly now. So I'm really excited to share this content. And don't forget, if you have your favorite educator in your life, whether they're a school leader or not, be sure to share this content with them, and hope you enjoy it. So today's episode is about toxic positivity. I read an article not too long ago on the website We Are Teachers, which I really like their content. Keeps it focused on the classroom teachers that are doing the work, and love the frame that they use for their articles. So We Are Teachers posted an article called "Is Your School Using Toxic Positivity to Exploit You?" I'll drop that in the show notes so you have a link to that article if you want to check it out. But they talk about the 5 biggest red flags, and wanted to just kind of break this article down because I think it has a lot of hyper relevant content. If I'm a school principal right now, or really if I'm any leader dealing with teachers, I want to know these things. I want to have these things front of mind. So I thought it was a really good content for this week's episode. So toxic positivity. So before we get into that, right? Like, let's talk about the introduction to the current state of teaching right now in 23-24 school year. And our teachers are faced with, well, our leaders as well, but like, let's come at this. We're school leaders. So our job is to serve teachers. That's what we do. Our role is to be able to provide support for the things that happen in our school building every day and make sure that teachers have what they need to be able to do their work. So let's talk about some of the realities, right? There's substitute shortages. Teachers are having to cover extra classes when those things happen. We continue to hear about pandemic learning loss, most of the time from pundits that have no clue what they're talking about or have never stepped foot in an actual classroom. So there's lots of pressure there. And then there has been an influx of negative student behaviors since we've returned from the pandemic. Missing for some students almost 2 full years of school has been a detriment to their learning. And teachers currently, they are dealing with the fallout from that. So, we're not giving teachers a lot, right? Like we could come in and be like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if we could give you more time to plan during your contract hours? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could provide salaries that are adequate to the job that you do on a daily basis to educate our kids? Those things would be great. Wouldn't it be awesome if school cultures didn't pretend that negativity doesn't exist? Like, those would be things that we could give to teachers right now, and that would be great. But the reality of the matter is that some things principals can control, others that they cannot. But one of the things that this article made me realize is that toxic positivity can 100% be controlled by principals. So let's dive a little bit into what is toxic positivity. So it's really about focusing on the positive 24/7 and not acknowledging that there are things that need to be taken care of in your school building. Every school building has things that they can work on and that are not positives in a schoolhouse. And it's the mentality of like, well, it could be worse, or let's look on the bright side, right? Like, it's that mindset. That's toxic positivity. And oftentimes it's well-meaning. Like, principals mean well, school leaders mean well when they say those things. However, when you push the negatives aside, it doesn't do anything to fix them or address them. And teachers are tired of that. So what are we going to do as school leaders to be able to help take steps to be able to exacerbate the negative things that are happening in our building? And that's the question that I'm going to address in today's episode, right? So like, a good example, I was trying to think of an example, would be like if you gave them time for self-care, right? And you're promoting like, hey, like take that yoga class, or make sure you have some time for yourself on the weekend. But don't forget, grades are due Monday at 8 a.m. Those things are counterintuitive to one another. And we do them. I did them. I was guilty of them. We do them without there's definitely not a negative, there's a negative consequence to that for sure, but my intent was always good. I just didn't think about those things explicitly. And that's what we're talking about, right? Like on one hand, telling them to enjoy their weekend, but on the other, in the same breath, telling them that grades are due at 8 a.m. on Monday. Well, no, they're not going to enjoy their weekend, and that's what really resonated with me from this article about toxic positivity. It's very hard to say, but in order for things to change, we have to demand it. So, like, if we need to say as leaders, we're going to fix these things, because systemic change requires action. Like those things don't just fix themselves. So it's going to require principals to do something about it. And this article in particular outlined 5 red flags. And as a reminder, I'll drop the article, link to the article in the show notes. And again, it's from We Are Teachers. But and I want to start with a caveat. If you're a school leader or a district leader and you're listening to this podcast episode and you're questioning it, you're part of the problem. So I'm going to need you to listen really well, okay? But the article outlines 5 red flags for toxic positivity. And the first one that they lay out is staying beyond contract hours, right? Y'all, we know if you're a school leader, I shouldn't make assumptions. If you're a school leader and you don't know that teachers are working well beyond their contract hours, and oftentimes they're getting into the schoolhouse early or staying late, like in the actual building. And then on top of that, we're adding pressure for them to perform, or the pressure that if they don't work to make all these things happen, that they won't be committed to their jobs. We have control of that. And one of the practices that you can do right now is tell your people to leave. When it's time to go, the work will be there when they get back. I assure you. Y'all, you're school leaders, you know that, right? Like the work is there when we get back. But it's okay to step away and disconnect. And it might not be possible to get all of that work done. And that's okay. And one of the things, I wasn't going to talk about this, but that's where your professional learning needs to be focused on making sure that teachers are giving students assignments that make sense, that are not a waste. If you have things in your curriculum maps right now that don't serve a purpose and are making teachers go above and beyond with no real learning outcome, you need to think of that. You need to bring that back to your leadership team or the powers that be, to your district office, and you need to have some conversations about that. Red flag number 2 was taking work home with them, and it goes hand in hand, right? Like if I don't get the work done during contract hours, well, then I'm going to take it home. And my goal when I was a principal was to not have my teachers going home with stacks of papers to grade each and every night. And like, in case they have a spare moment, they're going to grade. My daughter's teacher was on her honeymoon and was grading papers on her flight to her honeymoon. Like that is not what we want teachers doing. Like that's crazy talk. So, some things that you can do as a leader, get a substitute for a day. Cover their class so that they can have a day of grading to get all that work done. An independent study day once a quarter. If you have control over the school calendar, which I know many principals don't, but you can certainly have input. You could certainly, maybe that professional development day doesn't have to be full wall to wall, and maybe teachers need some time where is just focused on giving students feedback and catching up on grading. Those are actionable steps that we could take as school leaders for taking work home. 3 is the curse of competence. And if you're in education, you know all too well about this, right? Like oftentimes we are tapped on the shoulder to take on more because we're good at our jobs. And that's not okay. So one of the things that you can do, an action step that you can take, if that is something that your teachers perceive, like that if I'm really good, I'm just going to get piled on more. You need to be purposeful about thinking about who are your go-tos in the building and not wearing them down. You need to spread the wealth. How can you build capacity within your school? Because if you only have a few people that you can lean on, that's on you as a leader to build more capacity within your school. Like we talk about building capacity all the time, and then oftentimes we don't do anything about it. So who are your go-tos, and are you burning them out? Because they will leave. And that's one thing that we absolutely, another red flag for positive or toxic positivity that we have complete control over. The fourth one is glorifying exhaustion, which I thought was it really resonated with me. I've been there. I've been there as a school leader. You know, it's about, like, I was working all weekend to get this done, to be ready for class today, or to be prepared for this professional learning that I need to give, or to get my lesson plans turned in while doing all of the other X, Y, Z that I need to get done. And the action item that you can take as a school leader is to give explicit permission for teachers to focus on themselves. Give them permission to not have to worry about those things. Especially when they're rocking and rolling every day in their classrooms. Like, they need to have permission to take some time for their families and just step away from the work. We can't glorify exhaustion. Like, well, yeah, you know, I was working all week on this or all weekend on this and got it done. Like, yeah, you know, you're ready. No, we can't have teachers doing that. They will be burnt. They will be burnt out for sure. Number 5, it's a calling to justify bad conditions, right? You know, teachers, if you've heard me talk at conferences or heard me in front of teachers, I am always sure to thank them for the work that they do. The teaching profession is the most important job that exists in our society, hands down. But our teachers are not aid workers. And they are not aid workers in a humanitarian crisis. Teachers are professionals. And we need to treat them as such. So there is an issue that we can address as principals. And one of the action items that you can take is to check in and make sure that you are supporting your teachers to make sure that they have everything that they need to get the job done. And I'm guilty of this. It's not always about students. It's about teachers too. And we need to probably, because I would be one of the ones that said, if it's not about students, you know, we need to reflect. But we really need to make it about students and about teachers. And if it's not about students and about teachers, then we need to do something about it. And teachers can make a greater impact when they're not feeling this pressure. And if you're thinking, like, I'm going to add a warning. I started with the caveat, but I'm going to provide a warning to my school leadership friends out there, that if you're thinking, like, I already do all this and we pay them to do a job, they will leave your school culture. They will leave your school culture. So my call to action to you is this, and it's very simple. Go tomorrow and take 2 to 3 things off your teachers' plates now. Tell them to leave when students are safely dismissed from campus. Ask them how you can support their grading load. Go and take 2 to 3 things off your teacher's plates tomorrow. That's my challenge. That's my challenge. How are you going to take some things off their plates? And are you building a culture of toxic positivity? I thought this article was great. Again, I'll drop it in the show notes. As always, I appreciate you listening. Again, please click that share, click that subscribe button. Make sure that you get this content each week delivered right to your inbox, or you get your notification. I would greatly appreciate it. If there's things that you want to hear more about, make sure you drop those in the comments or reach out to me for sure, because I will definitely, I love listening to the comments and the feedback that I get on these episodes, and definitely want to make sure that I'm providing content from my experience as a principal that lands where it needs to land. So make sure that you do that. Again, as always, thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm Mike Meechin. See ya.